Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild, how artificial intelligence is evolving from just another tool into a real, strategic partner for entrepreneurs. Your next co-founder, basically.
So let's start with this quote. If you've ever been in a startup, this probably hits close to home, right? It's that classic grind, always fighting the clock, always watching the budget. You're wearing 10 different hats at once.
But things are changing, and they're changing fast. Check out this number. The global market for AI and startups is set to just explode. We're talking over $62 billion by 2027. This isn't just some passing fad, This is a fundamental shift in how businesses get off the ground.
Which brings us to this idea of the AI co-pilot. And look, this is way more than just a bunch of cool new apps. It's a whole new way of thinking, a new strategic paradigm. We're moving away from AI as just a tool to something much more integrated, a co-pilot.
Okay, so what do we actually mean by an AI co-pilot? Well, think of it just like in an airplane. The co-pilot is there to support you, to handle navigation, monitor all the complex systems. But you, the founder, you're always the pilot. You're in command. You make the final critical calls.
And the results? They're honestly staggering. A massive review of 68 different studies found that startups using these co-pilots are seeing insane gains. I mean, just look at this. Automating up to 75% of the day-to-day grind, getting to market 40% faster, and more than doubling your patent output, that is a massive, massive competitive edge.
And to put that into perspective, let's just take one example, finance. An AI can process invoices 11 times faster than a person. A task that used to take, 45 minutes? Now it's done in 4, and with way fewer errors. For a small, scrappy team, that is an absolute game changer.
Okay, so let's get practical. What does this digital toolkit actually look like? What can this co-pilot do for you across the key parts of your startup? All right, let's start with marketing and content. Think of your AI co-pilot as your own in-house creative agency. You can throw a raw idea at a tool like Jasper, and boom, you get back polished ad copy or a full blog post. Then something like Canva AI can take that text and whip up amazing visuals. A whole concept can go from an idea to a finished pitch deck in minutes. Literally minutes, not days. Now, what about development? For your tech team, tools like GitHub Copilot are, they're like having a genius-level senior developer sitting right next to your engineer 24/7. It's not just suggesting lines of code, it's actually anticipating what they're trying to build. This just massively speeds up everything, writing code, debugging, the whole innovation cycle.
And then there's fundraising. This is a huge one. Here, AI can act like your personal mentor. Tools like PitchBob, they do more than just make a pretty deck. They'll actually dig into your business model, challenge your assumptions, and even prep you with mock Q&As for those really tough investor meetings. It's like having a seasoned VC coach on call.
So all of this sounds pretty incredible, right? Almost too good to be true. And you're probably thinking, okay, is it really that simple? Well, you guessed it. There's a hidden catch here.
So what is the catch? Well, the problem, the complication, starts when we begin to rely too much on these amazing tools. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Researchers have a name for this. They call it the co-pilot paradox. Here's the deal. The exact thing that makes AI so powerful, its incredible efficiency, can actually end up hurting you if you're not careful. It can start to suppress that messy, creative, out-of-the-box thinking that a startup literally needs to survive. And this paradox doesn't exist in a vacuum. It gets amplified by some very real-world barriers. I mean, look at the biggest hurdles for startups trying to adopt AI. The number one issue? Skill gaps. Almost a third say they just don't have the right in-house talent. Right behind that, you've got the high costs and, of course, the lack of good, clean data to work with.
And it goes even deeper than that. You've got some really serious ethical risks to think about. We've all heard stories about hiring algorithms that just end up reinforcing old biases. And then there's the huge question of privacy. When you use these cloud-based tools, you really have to ask yourself, where is my secret sauce, my proprietary code and data, actually going?
Okay, so that's the problem. The million-dollar question then is, how do you get all the amazing power of an AI co-pilot without falling into that trap, into the paradox? Well, the answer seems to be all about synergy.
This is what's called the human-AI synergy model, and it's really all about getting the balance right. It's about setting clear roles. The human, the pilot, you handle the stuff humans are great at: creativity, big picture strategy, and making the ethical calls. You let the AI, the co-pilot, do what it's great at: lightning fast speed, crunching massive amounts of data, and scaling things up. It's a true partnership where each side plays to its strengths.
So how do you actually do this? Well, researchers have laid out a pretty practical three-step framework. First, there's the 70-30 rule. Use your AI for productivity gains about 70% of the time, but, and this is key, dedicate the other 30% just to fuel crazy innovation experiments. Like, use it to brainstorm 10 wild moonshot ideas you'd never think of on your own. Second, you have to create feedback loops. Constantly review how the AI is doing and actively test it for bias. And third, and this is probably the most important part, a human always has to be accountable for the final decision.
Because at the end of the day, the takeaway is pretty clear. The point is to automate, not abdicate. AI's real value isn't in replacing us, it's in augmenting our creativity and leadership. It's about letting the machines handle the boring stuff so we can focus on what really matters.
So this really leaves every entrepreneur with a pretty transformative question to think about. Is your next co-founder an algorithm? It forces us to rethink not just how we work, but who, or maybe what, we're going to work with to build whatever's next.